Welcome back to the Creative Connection. And I am your host, Cyndi Thomsen. And I've got notes in front of me today because I don't want to forget anything that I am saying. And if you've been following along these past few weeks, you know we've been exploring what it means to truly reclaim your voice, your vision, and then as we are beginning this mindfulness, really leaning into or realigning with what matters most to us in our heart, in our body. Today, we're going to dig into that body part just a little bit. Last week, my guest, Vicki Garrett, helped us explore the concept of heart chatter, but not like mind chatter where it's negative, something that's positive, listening to the voice of our heart and not the noise of our head. Learning to calm ourselves down so that the noise that's out in the world is not what's guiding us. We are being guided by our own inner voice. My guest today is Priya Sudarsanam, a coach who helps women connect to their authentic voice, not just through words, but through the deep wisdom of the body. We'll talk about throat chakras, what happens when life and society quiets our voice over time, and how seasons like perimenopause can actually invite us back to the truth we've always known but have been silenced along the way. Whether you felt stuck, silenced, and simply need to re-spark your truth with courage and clarity, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in. So, Priya, welcome.
Thank you,
I'm
Cyndi.
I'm curious. Is there anything in your intro that you would like to touch on or start with for us to get to know you just a little bit better?
Yeah, so I am a speech pathologist by training. I've been working with children and adults for over 20 years. And as I've gone through this journey in the past 5 years, I realized I became a speech therapist simply because at 6 years old, when we were first moving to the US, and I was super excited. I remember being in England and my uncle was taking care of us and he got a call. My dad had gotten the job in the US and we were so excited. And I remember I had a cute little English accent. I ran out and told my brother, Rajat, we're going to America. And just pure, innocent excitement. And my uncle, for whatever his reason was like, shut up. Like as if I shouldn't have spoken up. I shouldn't have said that. People are going to find out. And that moment was the moment that created that subconscious pattern and that it's not safe to speak up. And indirectly, I realized, or not directly, I realized, wow, this is why I went into speech therapy because of that. But I didn't have a voice that entire time. Those 20 years of working in the field, I never had a voice. So that is why I'm so passionate about it. And
Yeah.
the message is simple.
So I'm curious, and I know I'm going off a little bit of the script that I sent to you, but I find that this happens every week is I get sparked by something. I hear something and I want to know more. So I'm curious, when was the moment that you realized that it's more than just the speech pathology? It's more about that birthing cry for our souls to really lean into what it is that we're here to do. And I'm a firm believer that we are all here for a certain reason.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what was it from that young person that was told to be quiet because someone might hear, to developing yourself as a pathologist, to now becoming a coach?
Yeah, honestly, for me, it was pretty dramatic. So that moment where it was essentially whether it was the universe hitting the unmute button on me, it was through a head injury. And I've always had gotten into dysfunctional relationships with men. That's how this played out, always where I didn't have a voice or the fact that I had a voice attracted them, but then I was slowly, like, smashed into nothing because I had that voice, and then by the end of it, I didn't, and so I was in a dysfunctional relationship at this time, and I wasn't listening, and I was
Mm,
hitting also major burnout with work, and I wasn't listening. I was just going because that's what I thought I had to do, and I had the head injury. I don't know what happened. All I know is I hit my head on the side of a bathtub, and being a therapist, speech pathologist, I know I've worked with so many people who've had head injuries and lost their speech for that, and I didn't. Um, I didn't die from it, and it was my wake-up call, and from that moment, it was this everything I could see in front of me that it's not just about my voice. It's every single part of me, every single part of my being, every part of my soul is muted,
mhm, mm.
and people would say, "Who are you at your soul level?" And I had no response. All I could say to myself was, "I'm a speech therapist. I'm a speech therapist." I amness was so muted.
Yeah. Yeah, that just sparks so much in me, but I'm gonna go back on script because I know we'll get to this question that's brewing inside of me. So one of the things that you have said is that everyone is waiting for that very first cry when the baby's born. That our first act is to find our voice. In fact, that's how they check to make sure we're okay when we are born. What draws you to this image? And what does it teach us, you and I, about voice and vitality?
So yeah, I mean, it is. You think about childbirth, and once you hear that initial cry, it's this sense of it just grounds you. It fills you with joy, fills you with energy. And that is the connection to everything that we are, is
Mhm.
that first cry. That first cry is, just think about child development and where that leads into. That cry turns into more cries, and then more sounds, and then the actual, communication has started from that cry. So I feel like it's the root of everything. And we go through, being a child, we're allowed to be a child up until a certain point. And then all of a sudden, and I can resonate, I mean, I can't speak for men, but I can speak for women, that then at a certain point, it's stop speaking up. Stop. You were a fun child, but now it's enough. And it happens pretty early in the clients that I've worked with.
Yeah, and it varies too. So depending upon culture, depending upon where you're living, depending upon um, an image popped into my head about um, primitive man, and that the baby's cry could bring something that's going to come eat them. So I think there's this ancestral through time, a quieting of someone putting a hand over someone's mouth, or the image that I have. So I know that there is something of this in my history of someone putting the hand up, like, no, 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 stop talking,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and just that image of having that hand in front of my mouth, more or less,
Right.
when they do that. And I'm wondering, as you think about this, probably in the speech therapy and the speech pathology, this would probably come up where there's been a little bit of trauma that has caused some of the silencing of people or the changing of how they communicate. And how does that relate to this idea of unmuting our souls? That's a big question. I was silenced in some way, shape, or form.
So this involves having a relationship with our body and understanding the subtle signs that our body gives us, that there is a block, that there is something stuck. for me, I could speak specifically for me that speaking up manifested as chronic digestive issues,
Oh,
chronic anxiety, and I've dealt with digestive issues from the time of 6 years old on, chronic constipation, all those issues. So, some of the like I said, when we talk about the soul, our body's functioning optimally, that, we're pure forms of ourselves, but as these situations, experiences affect us, it also affects our body, and we can use the wisdom of our body to tell us, "Hey, something's wrong." Now, whether it's
wow.
specifically around your throat, and some people that I've spoken to who have felt silenced in their lives had chronic strep throat, had chronic would lose their voice all the time, wear their throat or wear, chronic sore throat. So that can be a thing that manifests, or it could be anywhere else in the body in chronic pain. So I think in this process, it's about really forming that deep connection, that relationship with ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. In some of the work that I do with some of my clients, while I'm not dealing specifically with this, I'm dealing with getting grounded to the earth first so that we can actually physically come back into our body and figure out who we are other than that title of mom, wife, coach, storyteller, whoever we are, but just to reconnect with the essence of who we are. And is it
Yeah.
at that point in time, what happens, and I'm sure you're aware what happens, is that they realize I can't figure it out because there's something there. And I
Right.
need to figure out what that thing is. And there are a couple of people that it has been in here, in the throat, a few in the heart, a lot in the head. And then, as a gut person, so I'm a gut person, I lead and I process and I'm very intuitive. But what's the idea behind this throat chakra? So I know what it is, but I'm sure that there are people who are listening that have no idea what that is.
Absolutely. So we have different energy centers in our body. We have 7 main energy centers, and each one is connected to a different part of our being. As we know, that you've got the root chakra, that's our powerhouse and our groundedness and our connection to the earth. And so when you look at the throat chakra, which is essentially here, it's everything around speaking your truth. It's everything around expression, and not just verbal expression. It's that expression of your soul. It's that expression of that creative person, or that person who beyond your titles, as you said, beyond those titles of mom, dad, speech therapist, your career. It's that innate knowing, and when and I love recently, I've loved the color blue, and I'm just, like, obsessed with
Oh.
blue, and I've been wondering why blue, and my phone cover's blue, my bed cover's blue, and then it was probably in the last year that it was just like, "Duh, this is the color of the throat chakra, is blue. No wonder that I am just wanting to be s bathing in it, essentially."
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we, as we think about the different centers, and what are, I know for me what happened for me. So, but I'm curious. So, being someone that's more down to earth, I was not on the earth, and my body was telling me, get out of your head, go into your body, plant your feet on the ground, and forever and today, I don't like shoes. I've
Mm.
never liked shoes. And I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Minneapolis, and we're talking really cold weather. We're talking, everything. And half the time I would be in no socks and the least amount of shoes that I possibly could. Had no idea why until I became an adult and realized that what I was being called to was to be more in my root chakra. And when I'm not, I don't do well.
Yeah.
So as we think about that, and we know that this one is speaking our truth, what are, just for awareness sake, and I've covered this a couple of times, but from your perspective, what are some of the others that are related to the throat chakra? So I have ones that are related to the root chakra, but what are some of the other energy centers that, and a friend of mine said, you have been falsely misled that that is where you need to do the work. So what are some of the other areas that might be nearby that we think, oh, no, 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 it's not that. I should be working on some other part of me.
Yeah, that's a great question because even as this is expression, just because this is expression doesn't mean this is the place that we have to focus on. It's just like we can have an injury on an arm and this part might be hurting, but yet we need to be working on the whole backside. So
Yes.
I see the energy centers as this flow and it's all connected. Nothing is separate from one another. So with my throat and speaking up, and it involved for me a deep healing of my heart because
Mhm.
it was so wounded from all the different experiences. Even I couldn't even say I love you to loved ones. Love was such a foreign concept to me. So once I really started healing my heart, I noticed that this started opening up. And then if I looked at my powerhouse, my solar plexus, I mean, that and the gut issues started to resolve and I noticed, wow, like I'm actually expressing myself more. So I feel like if you can get connected to the flow and
Yes.
even your third eye chakra,
Yes.
understanding that that was the center of my intuition and that my intuition
Yes.
was going to tell me where in my body did I need to focus on to help me express myself more. That's a practice that we can really embody in our lives is really taking away the separation and thinking about more about the integration.
Right. Right. Great foundation. I know there's more questions, but I want to go on to the next thing. So, as we explore the idea of reclaiming our voice and then perimenopause and then menopause and then postmenopause kicks in, and I know because a lot of women that I work with, and I'm sure a lot of women that you work with are going through this, and it's that transition time when we are hormonally chaotic. We can be a little bit more emotional or a little bit more standoffish. So we could be either end. So you've mentioned that perimenopause is a season that invites us to revisit the parts of our self and our voice, the parts that we've set aside. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So think if you watch TV from when you're little, you're pretty much watching commercials and in my experience, I was expecting the worst once I was hitting perimenopause. So once that change was happening, I thought things were going to decline. And what I started to notice as I entered this, as I also released the fear around, hey, my periods are irregular and this is okay. Like all of the
Hmm.
fear around that, the actual physical symptoms, I started to notice that this change in hormones was actually helping me. It coincided with the head injury and it coincided with me being in this relationship, but it also was the catalyst for me to actually start saying, this is what I need. This is what I want. If, or even in relationship dynamics, if something was just not aligned or the behavior was not aligned, it was giving me the strength to say, hey, I didn't like the way you said that. And it was a really tumultuous time because I lost a lot of relationships as a result of me speaking up. And so it really invites us. It's not the end of our lives, it's the entry into the second act of our life. And it's an invitation in to explore.
Yeah. I noticed for me that it was that moment in time where I had the opportunity to look at the path I was on and to make a choice. Is this, in fact, the path I want to be on? Is this what matters to me? Or is this the moment in time that I realign to something else that I have forever put on the back burner
Yeah.
or said no to or denied that I really wanted it because there were other things happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything is in question. If I think about myself during that time, I thought I was going to be doing the speech job that I was in till I was 65 and that retirement was gonna look like everything was for 65. I was in this little framework that I had grown up with, and all of a sudden is this what you believe or is this what you were made to believe? And it's quite I the spiritual awakening.
It is, and, it really is. So, I'm a huge part of the storyteller part is I'm a theater person, and so there is a quote, and I'm not gonna do the whole thing because it's a monologue, but there's a quote from a Shakespeare play. Jacques' line from All's Well That Ends Well is, "All the men and women are merely players. They each know their own entrance and exit." And I stop it right there because we do know, but we choose not to
Yeah,
open the door that we want or
yeah,
to shut the door that we want. And I was speaking with a group yesterday, and it really is about choice. And I think what you have alluded to, and maybe we could go just a teeny bit further, is the curiosity begins to come up sometime around this perimenopause, maybe even right before it's going to happen because things are already starting to happen before they happen. And we have a choice at that point in time to listen to ourselves or to continue to listen to the world around us. So if there's a woman that was listening today that is curious, but is also afraid of this stirring that's going on because it's going to make waves and it's going to change the way she exists in the world. And that little inkling of curiosity begins to happen, but then fear steps in. So what would you say to someone like that? Or is there a tool or two that you might suggest that can guide us or begin to guide us? Quite often, we find that we need help. And so we start seeking help at that
yeah.
age. Yeah.
There are so many things that I did around this time. The biggest thing I feel is community. I had one person that I could speak to that was telling me I'm not going crazy, that was telling me it's okay. She had gone through something similar, completely different situation, but she was there for me, luckily. And being able to voice that and express what's coming up was the biggest thing for me. And also having that community, having that one person or multiple people, or it could even be a YouTube channel, which I watched a lot of too, with people telling you to sit with that fear. I think a lot of times we're in this place of like, I have to fix it. I have to fix it. And the biggest gift that, or the biggest piece of advice that I got was just sit with it. It's going to be uncomfortable, but just sit with it. And then in addition to that, there were so many different tools that I used. Breathwork was one of those to really help me just ground. And I do cranial sacral therapy. So, really just using those tools on myself to just even placing your hand on the part of your body that feels tense in that moment is such a powerful tool. You're using your own tools. I took my sound bowl that fits on my head and I literally put it on my head and struck it
Mm,
just because I wanted quiet. I just needed
yeah.
that kind of vibration. So, yeah, I think there's so many different ways, but finding that person that you can speak to about it is really key.
So, part of the reason that I created this podcast and called it What I Do, which is the creative connection, is because I believe that we are all, in our essence, whether we admit it or not, we are all creative beings.
Yeah.
And in order to express ourselves, we need to belong. We need to have connection. So those two things together, I think, are crucial to whether you are a man or a woman or don't identify as either. I believe that those two things are essential to mind, healthy body, and overall spiritual connection to the world.
Yeah.
And that is why I started this, is because I want to have conversations around these things that we don't go out and start talking to just anybody about. And I know that there are people like you, because I did the same thing where I binge watched certain things. And even now at 64, I still do that sometimes, is I'll go find something that I need to have. First of all, I need to know I'm not insane
Absolutely.
because, and I'm sure you can relate to this. When those hormones go wonky, you start to think, oh, am I losing it?
You really feel like you're losing your mind. You've lost every sense of yourself, and you just feel like you're dying a little bit every day, which
Right.
now, years later, I can say, "Thank God I had that death of myself." But in the moment, it's
Yeah.
so traumatic.
Well, and I've likened it recently to, I think you mentioned early on in our conversation about an awakening, a spiritual awakening. And I think we are going through the birthing process more than once. We did that first one where we all cried and we said, I'm here, feed me, clothe me, keep me warm, love me. We are doing that over and over and over and over till our last physical breath on this planet. And as a communication coach, as a person that is helping people learn to speak their truth, I'm sure you see that. Do you?
Absolutely. There's not just one version of us, there's multiple iterations of us, and we get
Yes.
to explore that. And it's just that time from the first birth to the perimenopause that you're just unaware. Maybe I can only speak for myself that I was just unaware.
Yeah.
And then I feel like once you open up and recognize, hey, you're going through this new birthing process, then you're excited for, you're not just staying so stationary. You're open to the possibility that this is going to happen again. And there's going to be
Mhm.
more times that this is happening. And
Yeah.
you're excited for it because you see the change that has come as a result of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question that I was asked yesterday, because the person who asked it, I should have known that she would have asked this question. I was speaking in front of a group yesterday. It was a panel discussion. I was there with another person. We were talking about communication, and we were talking about how effectively communicate with our peers and our loved ones and in our work. And the person asked the following question: how do you speak your truth to power? And I'm curious what your answer to that question would be.
That's an amazing question that they asked that. So, in this evolution of myself, I thought finding my voice meant I had to be more powerful. I had to
Hmm.
essentially roar. And what I've noticed is that I've become more quiet and I'm actually a better listener. But in that reflective practice and that place of curiosity, so never going into any situation already assuming that you know what this person's about or just, the whole thing around assuming. It's just really going in as an open observer and witness and asking those reflective questions has really opened me up to being more powerful because that one question that you ask might shift everything. It can just change the entire dynamic. So that's my question when you relate it to as far as power is just I did go through a phase where speaking my truth was speaking more and really voicing all the things that I had kept quiet about. But now I find I'm just quiet. But the
Yeah.
things that I say are 10 times more powerful than when I
Yeah.
said more, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it totally does, because my answer to the question was we have to allow the silence.
Yeah.
That is how, I am barely 5'2", and the world around me is a lot taller. Growing up, I grew up in a small farm town in Minnesota, and the average height of our high school basketball team was 6'6". So I was below everyone in many ways. And I, in my anxiety, talked and talked and talked and talked and felt like I had to fill the spaces because that's how I was going to be seen and heard, right? But I have learned that the power is in the silence.
Silence is the
And so
most
I
certain
100%
of
agree with you.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. To just sit, and I even told the group, and they were all like, just sit in the silence. I took a speaker training, and at the tail end of the speaker training, one of the exercises they had us do was a Larry Zukov exercise, which is to go up on stage and not say anything until don't pre-plan what you're going to say. Just go up and wait to see what you were going to speak about. Let it come to you, let it arise, which took an awful lot of breathing, to be on a stage with everyone looking at you. And I think that plays into the idea of being born and that first cry. What is that thing that's going to come to me that I need to share with you?
Some of my most evolved forms of expression have come from silence
Yeah.
and not just minutes and hours, a few days, but just
Yeah.
absolute silence. And that's where the
Yeah.
inspiration comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyone listening, if they wanted to connect with you, can you share about how they can reach out to you? And I will include anything in the show notes as well. But something, what would be a good thing for them to do if they're thinking, I wonder if she can help me with this? I am having a hard time speaking up in my life. I don't know. I don't know why. And I know that there's more to what I'm living than what I'm living. Yeah.
Yeah. So if people go to www.unmutewithpriya.com, you can get a free training where, as I've worked with a lot of women and even looked at my own journey, it's so simple, but one of the hardest things to do is to learn how to say no. And not
Yes.
just about saying no, learn how to say no and not feel guilty, not feel shame, not feel regret. So I have a training that you can access when you go to that website, and then that will lead you through to booking a free 20-minute coaching call with me. There's an
Excellent.
application involved in that, but then you can also reach out to me in email, support@priyasudarsanam.com, and then all my socials, of course. And if you do email me, I respond to all my emails and love the connection. So if somebody's resonating with this and they just want to reach out, I will respond too.
Great. So, two really quick questions. The first one is one phrase to remember when you feel like your voice is tightening or you're not sure what to say. What's something that someone could take away and begin to do before they connect with you?
So it's not a phrase, but I actually just go, and I actually just make that sound. And I just do it repeatedly whether I'm in the car and when I go, the vibration, you feel it in your heart. I feel it's a perfect sound to connect your throat and your heart because you're also feeling that vibration all through your face
Mhm,
too. So
mhm.
that is a really good one to just kind of get, especially if you're in a place where you're not used to making sound and
Yeah.
just being quiet, that is a good place to start.
And then one more question. In your daily life, what is something that you do to keep your voice and stay authentic in who you are as you speak your truth?
So I sing, and I was never a singer, but recently, just in a group, a meditation group that I'm a part of, I sing and I found that I'm a great singer. And so, whether it's a song that's on the radio, a pop song, or whether it's one of a devotional song, I
Mhm.
just allow myself to sing and without hesitation, and embrace the sounds that are coming out of me. So I found that that has been the best tool.
Fantastic. Well, Priya, it has been lovely to have a conversation with you today. And I know that our paths will cross again, whether
You're
it be like this or on the phone or in person. So I'm fairly certain that our paths will cross again.
same
So
here,
thank
and
you.
thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. What a fantastic, beautiful, and powerful conversation. I loved getting to know Priya more, and it reminded me, and hopefully it reminded you, that our voice is more than what we say. It's that vibration in our throat when we go hum, which travels all the way through our body. It is finding our voice to sing when we never knew we could. Going back to episode 1 and previous episodes where I shared with you that I was told when I was 10, 11, that I was tone deaf and had no business singing. I have sensed over the years, I have moved beyond that, and I now sing on a regular basis like Priya does. We have just tapped the surface, I believe, of this conversation, Priya and I. I look forward to being on her podcast, and I will have her back. And I know that this unmuting of our voice goes with our becoming rooted to ourselves. If something she shared resonated with you, maybe the idea of the throat chakra or the call to revisit your voice, the voice that's been quieted, or perhaps the fact that you might be entering a new chapter of your life, either perimenopause, or you may be coming up on it, or you maybe just post it into full on menopause, or maybe you are post-menopausal. And you're realizing that you have something to say, but you're not quite sure how to begin to share that with the world. Take a few moments today to breathe, to put your bare feet on the ground and simply hum, or listen to the sound of your own truth, or answer the question. The question that was actually asked of me yesterday was by Dr. Jenny Wallig, who will actually be my guest next week. How do you speak your truth to power? Do you know? Are you resonant with that? Maybe that's your journal question for this coming week. I hope that you have discovered that this podcast is not just for listening, but it is also a space to explore what your beliefs and ideas are around becoming rooted in you. And again, a gentle invitation for you to join a supportive community and connection of belonging in that winter gathering of the Rooted in You circle. It will be a 6-week journey, a time to pause for silence, to reconnect to what's going on inside of you, to realign with what matters most. I do have early bird registration going on now through November 15th, which does include 2 bonus coaching calls with me that we can do before that gathering circle in January. You will find the link for this in our show notes. And as I briefly shared, next week, we will continue the arc of this conversation about reclaiming our voice with Dr. Jenny Wallig. She is the co-founder of Powerful Love Relationships. We will explore how relationships we build with ourselves can transform every other relationship in our life. At some gut level, I think we all know that. And I hope that next week's conversation with Dr. Jenny will help you explore the path that you want to take. Breath. With your bare feet on the ground, go take a nature walk. Breathe in the fresh air. Trust your voice and remember, beginning again or starting anew is not a setback. It's an invitation to reclaim, reignite, and realign with your voice, your vision, what matters most, and at the core of it, becoming connected to yourself. Have a fabulous week, and thank you so much for joining. If you've enjoyed this conversation or any of my other ones, please like and share. I look forward to connecting with you again.